What can fall down from the sky? Raindrops? Hail? Snow? That's right, but sometimes even an animal can fall on your head. A shark can land right in the yard of a house. An alligator can fall near a residential building, and birds can do something creepy. In this episode, you'll see these and other cases and moments when animals fell down from the sky. Let's go. Shark. Take a look at this photo where a shark fell from the sky and landed on a house, breaking the roof. It seems impossible, because how can sharks that swim in the sea fall down from the sky? Well, maybe not so huge, but still a shark can fall on someone's head. It's happened more than once. For example, in 2015 in Virginia, children found a shark in the yard of their house. To be more precise, it was a baby shark. They were frightened and very surprised by the find. How'd the fish get there? After all, there were no oceanariums nearby, nor a store with exotic fish. The answer was given by scientists. They believed that the shark was pulled out of the water by a bird of prey, which then carelessly dropped its prey. A similar thing happened in Australia when a shark was found on a local road, and it was already quite large, not some tiny shark. Soon it happened again, and another shark was found on an Australian highway, surprising the drivers. The first shark ended up on the road after heavy rain with flooding, and the second shark was probably thrown out of the car. And this shark was found in the garden of a UK resident named James Hill. The 20-inch-long cat shark came from nowhere and really puzzled James, but most likely it was dropped again by some inattentive shark-hunting bird. Fish. In general, fish falling from the sky is not something super rare, not something that happens once in 1,000 years or something like that. It can be seen in different places all over the world. If the fish is lying alone, then most likely it was dropped by some bird of prey. Not all birds of prey have a powerful beak to hold the fish, but it also happens that there are many fish at once. Such a phenomenon is called fish rain. For example, such a phenomenon took place in Mexico in 2017 in the city of Tampico. Along with the usual precipitation, fish fell from the sky. And this is Malta. In 2019, there was also a fish rain. Hundreds of fish fell down from the sky on the sidewalk and roadway. The locals didn't waste time and started collecting the fish. Some did it to release the fish back into the sea, and some did it to get free food. The same thing happened in India in 2022, and just a couple of months ago. In the same city, with an interval of almost exactly a year, there was quite a heavy fish rain. Australia didn't stand aside either. There, at the beginning of this year, fish fell on the heads of local residents. The children began to collect the fish and put it in jars with water. But how does all this happen? It's clear with one fish, a bird of prey cannot hold it and drops it. But hundreds of fish? How many birds have to screw up at the same time? The answer is zero. It's not about the birds, it's about a storm or a tornado. Usually it's after these phenomena that fish rain falls. Strong wind near bodies of water lifts fish into the air, carries them away from the water, and fish fall down to the ground. It's all the cases you've just seen. It was the storm or just a downpour with very strong winds that was to blame. For residents of any part of the Earth, fish rain seems something unusual and surprising, even if they know how it was formed. But there's one place on the planet where fish rain is not uncommon. It's the city of Lloro in Honduras. There, once a year, fish regularly fall from the sky. It's been happening for over 100 years between May and July. Locals and tourists watch as a dark cloud appears in the sky, and then lightning flashes, thunder rumbles, strong wind blows, and rain pours for 2 to 3 hours. After it's over, hundreds of live fish are left on the ground, which people collect and take home to cook. There's even a fish rain festival in Lloro. I don't think it's very nice to have fish falling on your head, but it's not that scary. It is much scarier when worms fall on you from the sky. Just such a situation happened recently in China. In Liaoning province, it rained worms. They covered parked cars and it looked gross, to say the least. I don't envy the owners of these cars. Personally, I'd rather walk than get in such a car. Where'd the worms come from? It's all the same. High winds are to blame. According to scientists, the worms were carried away by strong winds during a storm. There's another theory. According to it, the worms were actually flower spikes of poplar trees, which resemble wriggling caterpillars. No matter how you look at it, it's not the most pleasant sight. Imagine you're walking down the street. Nothing portends trouble when suddenly an alligator falls down from the sky right in front of you. It seems that I'm now describing the plot of a delusional dream when one has a fever, but it really happened. It happened not so long ago in China again, in May of this year. A surveillance camera filmed an alligator falling from a great height, jumped up and landed again. Don't worry, it survived. The reptile hit the canopy stretched over the entrance, which broke its fall. The weather here is clear and sunny. No tornadoes or storms in sight, and I don't think a bird was to blame, do you? I mean, no bird could have lifted an alligator into the air. It's more interesting. The reptile was a pet, and it fell from the balcony of a skyscraper from the height of the 20th floor. The owner was not at home at the time, so now we can only guess whether the alligator accidentally climbed onto the windowsill and fell, or whether it deliberately jumped out of the window to escape from the confinement to its friends into the wild. Birds in Mexico. It's one thing when animals that can't fly fall down from the sky, but there are also such unusual cases where birds fall down from the sky. Sometimes it looks really creepy. Look at what happened in Mexico a year ago. It was as if someone from above opened a door and through it hundreds of thousands of birds fell to the ground. It happened really fast, massively, and suddenly. Some of the birds managed to get up and fly away, but others remained on the sidewalk. The footage is really frightening. It feels like the birds are performing some kind of ritual or that they're going insane. Some people thought the apocalypse had begun. In fact, it's not known what happened. There are only versions. One of them says that the birds may have collapsed as a result of inhaling toxic fumes. According to another version, the birds sat on wires, weighed them down, and they were synchronously electrocuted. And someone believes that the birds fell because of a problem that arose during the murmuration, a phenomenon where a large flock of birds forms a dynamic, volumetric, and huge figures in the air. They say that the birds lost their way. There's another version, according to which the fall of the birds was caused by a bird of prey, fleeing from which they crashed into the ground during the murmuration. Which version do you like the best? Or do you have your own version? If so, share it in the comments. Birds in the USA. Something similar, only on a smaller scale, happened in the United States in 2018. Then, in the city of Idaho Falls, geese suddenly began to fall down from the sky. No pun intended, all of them were within a radius of a few hundred feet. In total, there were about 50 geese. This time, there was only one version. No murmuration or toxins were here. The geese were flying towards Canada when a severe thunderstorm with hail started. At first, it was thought that the birds were beaten by hail, but it wasn't the case. Scientists said that in this case, the birds would have flown to the ground, landed in different places, and waited out the weather. In this case, they were probably struck by lightning. That's right, the lightning hit the whole flock. Unfortunately, it's impossible to survive this. Are you afraid of spiders? I'm sure many of you can't stand them because these creatures can be everywhere. Sometimes they even fall from the sky. Take a look at this footage taken in Arizona, where the spiders look more like locusts or something like that. There are lots of them, and they're moving through the air. And here's what it looked like in Brazil. In 2013 and 2019, spiders were observed there hovering in the sky and looking like they were ready to land on the heads of the locals. Looks pretty creepy. That's a real nightmare for any arachnophobe. But the truth is, spiders don't actually fall from the sky, at least these ones. If you look closely, you can see that they're not moving, but rather hanging in the sky. They're hanging on cobwebs. This is the so-called aeronautical method that arthropods use during migration. These animals weave a cobweb on top of the trees, then they're picked up by the wind along with the cobweb, and they fly long distances. Scientists say that spiders can hover at an altitude of up to 1.8 miles above the ground, hence the feeling of spider rain. Iguanas. Well, in Brazil, people are shocked by spiders in the sky. In Florida, everyone's shocked by iguanas that suddenly started falling down from the sky. Many residents of this American state suddenly began to notice that on the streets of their city there are dozens of iguanas that weren't there before. Now, we already know that birds of prey can drop their prey on the ground. Could this be the same reason? Not at all. It's the iguanas themselves. These animals are cold-blooded, meaning their body temperature depends on the surrounding temperature. If it gets cold, iguanas freeze and become immobile. At that moment, they fall from the trees where they sat, find themselves on the ground, and surprise the locals. In those days, it got cold in Florida, and this was the reason for such an unusual phenomenon. By the way, after such a freeze, an iguana doesn't die. After thawing and warming up, it comes to its senses. Flying foxes. Flying foxes are bats, and like iguanas, they also sometimes end up on the ground. Sometimes it can literally rain flying foxes, as happened in Campbelltown, Australia a few years ago, when many neighborhoods were covered with these bats that fell down from the sky. If, in the case of the iguanas, they were freezing, it was the opposite here. The flying foxes were overheating. In those days in Campbelltown, there was an abnormal heat of above 104 degrees Fahrenheit. For flying foxes, this is a critical temperature. In such a heat, they lose control of themselves, stop orienting themselves in space, and fall to the ground. It's really unusual when animals fall down from the sky. And next, I'll show you equally strange and amazing cases and moments when veterinarians have found these things inside animals. No matter what anyone says, snakes are omnivorous creatures. They're capable of devouring anything. One day it may be a huge crocodile caught in the mouth of a python. Another day it may be a pet caught at the wrong time and in the wrong place. And the third day there may be a beach towel in the snake's stomach. This is exactly what happened in Australia to a 10-foot-long python named Monty. Monty's owners noticed that their pet was acting strangely and became alarmed. Suddenly, they noticed their beach towel was missing and thought Monty had swallowed it. Python was taken to the vets, x-rayed, and their fears were confirmed. The towel was deep in the python's belly and was life-threatening for the reptile. Emergency surgery had to be performed. The veterinarians used an endoscope with forceps to remove the towel. They were able to grab the end of the towel and pull it through the python's mouth. Fortunately, all ended well, and the vets had an unforgettable experience, as this was the first time anything like this had happened in their practice. Sharks are no less omnivorous than snakes, especially when it comes to tiger sharks, some of the most dangerous sharks on the planet. They eat even inedible things, and it doesn't matter to them because they can literally turn their own stomach inside out and spit it out in order to get rid of unnecessary things. Not unsurprisingly, tiger shark can even swallow a camera. This has happened several times, but the most striking footage was obtained by filmmaker Zimi the Kid last May. He was filming a nature documentary on a Maldivian island when a tiger shark approached his camera. It opened its mouth to get a taste of the equipment, and soon the camera was inside the animal. The camera recorded the gills and teeth of the tiger shark right in the mouth. This is about the picture seen by still living prey. They're eaten by this predatory fish. However, it didn't eat the camera and soon spat it out. According to the filmmaker, such behavior of the shark did not make him angry. On the contrary, he praised the predator for its curiosity. As for our favorite pets, in terms of curiosity, dogs are probably unrivaled. These faithful friends are constantly striving to explore the world and often taste it in a literal sense. Sometimes this ends up being unusual. For example, at the end of 2017, there was an incident in the American state of Oklahoma. A 4-year-old Shar-Pei began to feel bad and lose weight dramatically. The family, in which the dog lived, for a long time couldn't understand where the binkies were disappearing, and at first thought that the child with whom the pet liked to play threw them in the street. But it turned out that the binkies were being eaten by the Shar-Pei himself. And it'd be fine if it ate only a couple of them, but in a few days the dog swallowed 21 binkies. No wonder the poor guy felt so bad. Just imagine how badly his stomach got clogged. But luckily, the story has a good ending. The vets performed surgery and removed all the foreign bodies. The vets hope that this example will serve as a lesson and that dog owners will keep their pets away from objects they can swallow. By the way, if you have a dog, write in the comments what was the most unusual thing he or she swallowed. I already foresee a lot of options, but it seems to me that it's unlikely that your dog ate rubber ducks. But a dog named Devil ate them. A few years ago, a bulldog with that grim name became famous all over Thailand when he decided to have himself a rubber dinner. Nong Aom, the animal's owner, bought a whole box of rubber ducks to decorate the pool, but the dog didn't like the toy birds very much. Devil began to destroy them the only way he knew, by eating them. However, the next day, the dog felt badly. He became severely bloated, and when he started vomiting ducks, Nong took her dog to the vet. It turned out the Devil had managed to swallow as many as 32 rubber ducks. The local vets said that they had seen all kinds of things, but they'd never seen a dog eat any foreign objects in such great quantities. Devil set a real record that almost cost him his life. But the main thing is that now the bulldog is no longer in danger. Rubber ducks and binkies are not the best things you can find in a dog's stomach, but trust me, it's not the limit. Some dogs swallow even kitchen knives. You'll learn about them in a few minutes. But for now, let's take a look at the turtle with the most unusual diet and the strange findings inside a fish. Coins. Everyone knows what a piggy bank is. I'm sure that almost every one of you has had or has one, but did you know that there are live piggy banks? Or rather, turtle banks? The protagonist of the following story was so named Bank because she ate coins in large quantities. This is because the turtle lived in a water body in which tourists threw coins for good luck to return to Thailand. Apparently, the turtle had been eating coins for a very long time because when the turtle underwent surgery, 915 coins were removed from her stomach. That's almost 11 pounds of metal. It's unclear how Bank even managed to eat so much and how she felt at all, but most likely very badly. The end of the story was bad too. Although the vets removed all the coins from the reptile, Bank soon died. She got worse after the surgery and died from complications. Sounds to me like a great example of why you shouldn't throw coins into all sorts of fountains and water bodies. Crocodiles. Next, we have the reptiles again. You might think that crocodiles did something weird and ate something they didn't need, but this time it's the opposite. They were found in the stomach of a fish. Two fishermen got lucky when they caught this huge fish in the river. Their plan was simply to gut the fish, fry it, and make themselves a delicious dinner. But the dinner had to be postponed for a while when they saw the baby crocodiles inside the fish. The only thing that wasn't clear was why the crocodiles were completely intact. Had the fish swallowed them without even chewing them? Or is it a fake? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comment. Let's get back to dogs. Remember when I promised to tell you about the cases of dogs swallowing kitchen knives? Well, it's true. It's hard to believe, but dogs really can do it. Moreover, they even survive such extreme dinners. A dog named Macy was very lucky. This Staffordshire Bull Terrier did something truly unfathomable by swallowing a giant bread knife. Could it be that this breed has a particular attraction to swallowing sharp objects? I mean, how else do you explain this pet swallowing a big kitchen knife? Macy's owner, Irene Paisley, realized something was wrong when the dog started whimpering. She thought Macy had swallowed her toy, but the vets shocked her when they told her about the knife. They started an emergency surgery and removed the knife, and Macy herself soon recovered. She was incredibly lucky because she'd swallowed the knife with the handle forward, which saved her from serious internal organ damage. And here's another omnivorous dog, a retriever named Cody. He didn't swallow any knives, but managed to swallow a light bulb whole. As is usually the case, the owners did not immediately understand what was wrong and sounded the alarm when the dog began to feel bad. Again, as is usually the case, the x-rays put everything in its place. Fortunately, it was a small light bulb. Nevertheless, it could have burst inside the dog, and the situation would have gotten much worse. But the vets didn't let it get to that point and managed to remove the bulb and save Cody. Plastic. When you think of plastic and animals, we usually think of sea creatures like whales that swallow plastic in the ocean and die. But it does happen, also not uncommon for birds to swallow plastic, which also face a tragic fate. But it's far less common for land animals to eat plastic. The story of Nandi, a bull from India, is all the more remarkable and frightening. A few years ago, the locals noticed something was wrong with Nandi. He began to arch his back a lot and also felt unwell. At first, everyone thought that the bull just had something wrong with his back. But as it turned out that the whole problem was in his stomach. Over a period of years, Nandi had eaten about 187 pounds of plastic waste and nails, which were stuck in his stomach. The trash just kept piling up because the stuff's not digestible. It's amazing how the bull ate so much trash. But the important thing is that the story has a good ending. Nandi is doing well, and his case reminds us, once again, how important it is to dispose of waste correctly. Why you shouldn't touch the snake den. Have you ever encountered a real snake in person? How about 2, maybe even 3? The protagonist of this video, while walking, noticed a strange movement in the bushes and decided to see what was there. Just like in an old horror movie, he was so surprised when he found a whole pit of snakes. The man didn't even lose his composure and courage and walked right up to the snakes, stood literally 3 feet away from them, and filmed, and even made quite a good joke at that. I'd definitely be scared if I was him. Many experts recommend not to panic when meeting with a snake, but to avoid it quietly if possible. By nature, snakes, like all animals, have the instinct of self-preservation, which prevents them from attacking the enemy they can't defeat. But if suddenly a snake senses something wrong, it will definitely strike first, because the best defense is offense. Apparently, this is what snakes have decided to do when they began to move swiftly in the direction of the author of the video. Just look at this. Everything is crawling with snakes. It's especially dangerous to disturb snakes if there are eggs nearby. Children are sacred, not only for people, but also for snakes. So they'll try to chase away the stranger to the last breath, just so their babies will be okay. The author of this footage was lucky. Most likely there were no eggs in this pit. But who knows what would have happened if the snakes had decided to chase the man to the end. A house with a surprise. A family bought a house in the village of Mali-Chekin near Anapa, Russia. Next to it was a basement in which the newcomers found an unpleasant surprise. There were dozens of snakes lying on metal shelves. They were in hibernation, curled up in balls. The owners assumed that they were Eastern racers. They called the Ministry of Emergencies, the administration, and 911, but no one wanted to help them. They said that the private house was their own problem. As clarified, a relative of the buyers, appeals to the emergency service and even City Hall of Anapa were unsuccessful. Caring people came to the rescue. They left the contact information of a man engaged in breeding snakes and provided assistance in such situations. Ilha de Queimada Grande. Did you know that there's an entire snake island? And this isn't some big theme park, but a small piece of land completely filled with these reptiles. According to scientists' calculations, on average there are 5 snakes per square meter of this island. At the same time, they're all venomous. They're golden lanceheads. Their venom is capable of destroying a rabbit in 2 seconds. It's needless to say that it's strictly contraindicated and generally prohibited for a person to swim to this island. Because snakes are here in complete isolation, there's not much food, reptiles have developed many mechanisms and skills that help them be incredibly dangerous predators. For example, in addition to strong venom, local snakes are great at climbing trees, jumping, and sitting perfectly still while waiting for prey. Such skills are needed because their main diet is migratory birds that fly to the island for a breather during their travels. Yikes, it's scary to even look at them. Ilha de Queimada Grande can safely be called a huge snake pit. Well, or a huge snake nest if you prefer. Thanks for watching. What impressed you the most in this episode? Let me know in the comments and subscribe to the channel.